Hey friends, so in this video I'm going to tell you exactly which tools you need to get started in leatherwork today, or well, as soon as they arrive once you've ordered them. I've boiled this list down to basically the most simple yet comprehensive list of tools that you will need to get started in leatherwork. Now there are a few here. The biggest mistake I made when I started leatherwork was I bought a absolute budget kit off eBay. I think it was about £60 or £70, $100 maybe. And it had a whole bunch of stuff that I've to this day never used. And the stuff I did use fell apart in months, if not weeks. These will not fall apart. I would highly recommend that you buy to your budget, but the best of your budget. So if you had the option between A and B, B being slightly more expensive, but you can afford it, don't go broke over this, absolutely. Go with the more expensive one. Simply because these tools will last you. And you don't want to buy now and then again in 6 months or 3 months trade in your budget ones for your really nice ones. If you can afford it, buy your really nice ones now. You don't need a whole rack of really nice tools to get started in leatherwork. You just need the minimum. And you can get the minimum for quite cheap. So let's start. The first thing you're going to need when you start leatherwork is something to mark it. You might think, oh no, I need to be able to cut it. Before you cut it, you need to put your pattern on the leather. Now, I would recommend that you mark the leather first and then you cut it. Don't just try and cut around your pattern because it's actually quite difficult. So the first thing I'm going to recommend is an awl. What an awl is, if you're not aware, is a piece of wood and essentially a needle. If you're a woodworker, you can make one yourself. Handle, needle shoved in the handle. That's all it is. The awl that I'm showing here is quite a fancy one, handmade in Japan by an absolutely fantastic tool maker. I can't remember off the top of my head how much it was, but I think it was about £30, which isn't very much, but this all adds up, and you don't need a super fancy awl. You can buy a really nice one, or for a tenner, £10, $15, probably less than that, probably $5 or $6. You can buy, this one's from Blanchard, so it's a little bit more expensive, but you can buy one of these for probably $5, I think. All it does is draw on leather. That's all an awl is. It doesn't use ink because leather marks. It's a handle and a stick, basically. A handle and a needle. So you use it to mark around patterns. So that's step one, mark it. Step two, we've marked the leather. Now we need to cut it. This is a indispensable, probably, from Blanchard again. Blanchard is a French manufacturer. They supply places like Hermes and Gucci and all of that, those very fancy places. They make some really, really nice tools. They've had this for several years. It patines beautifully. It's brass. Don't need it. It's lovely. And the blade is from Chartermade, South African maker, because the blade that comes with the Blanchard is awful. Don't use it. So if you buy the handle, you also need to buy the blade, because the blade's replaceable. It's one of the great things about this blade, this handle, is it's got little screws in it. You can replace the blade. Wonderful. Now, if you don't want to pay the $60 or $70 for one of these, which you absolutely do not need to do, you can just use a craft knife or a scalpel or a box cutter or whatever you can find that has a sharp edge, and it needs to be sharp. What I use frequently, because the blades are super sharp, they don't last a long time, and you can buy them in packs of 100, I think. This one's a number 11. I just like the shape of it. It's a scalpel. It's what surgeons use when they're cutting you, well, making incisions in you when they're operating. That's all it is. It's a cheap scalpel. You can buy these for a tenner from your local craft store. They are, I'd say, more indispensable than the brass one. Side note, you do need to replace the blades a lot. You can strop them, but if you're just starting out, buy a pack of 100 for 15 quid, $20. It'll last you months. Fabulous. You have marked and you've cut. Now, scalpels or craft knives, or the indispensable, are fantastic for doing detailed cuts. so wiggly cuts. If you really want to be a baller and you want to splash out, this is a Japanese, they call them Japanese utility blades as far as I'm aware. A whole bunch of places make them. This is by the same manufacturer as my youll, a place called Okada. I don't speak Japanese. The reason these are great is because they are long and straight. So once you put the blade in and you drag it, so you put it in and you drag it, the length of the blade, the length of it down here, keeps the cut quite straight, which is very helpful if you're doing a straight line. Don't need it. You can use a ruler and a scalpel, no problem at all. This is just a nice thing to have. Wonderful. To bevel it. Now, you can buy a whole range of different types of bevelers. They come in all shapes, sizes. The first thing to note is the size is the number. So the smaller the number, the smaller the size. So if you have a number 1, like my Palo Santo one is, this is quite a fancy one. The fancy ones are just smoother to use and generally keep their edges longer than the more expensive ones. This one was about 70. They're quite expensive. I'll be honest, I rarely use it, but when you're beginning, you will use it quite frequently. I rarely use it because I use sandpaper instead. I feel like I have better control. But for beginners, probably do need a beveler, okay? Next step after we've beveled it is to glue it together. Now, I use a water-based contact adhesive. This one is called EcoStar 116. There's a whole variety of different types of water-based adhesive with all sorts of different properties, so I can't go into all of that now. Leave a comment and subscribe if you want to see a breakdown of different types of glues. I'd be more than happy to make one. I'd love to make a video for you. I don't have time today. You can also use something like PVA. Now, contact adhesive is good because it sticks instantly. PVA doesn't. PVA works, but you have to put it together, line it up, and then put weight on it. Contact adhesive, you put it on both sides, they're dry, you stick them together, it's done. With PVA, you can still use it if you're a beginner and you've got some in the cupboard. Absolutely go ahead and try and use it. You just have to leave it there for half an hour to dry and settle. But it's fine, it works. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to mark our stitch line. So I use this. It is a CS Osborne and it is called a wing divider. Quite simple in how it works. It's got 2 arms and a screw. You unscrew the screw, you undo the arms. That simple. Same sort of thing that like protractors when you're, I think they're called protractors, when you're at high school. Same thing. This just doesn't have a pen. This has got 2 points because they're the marks again. So that's what we do. Now the stitch line is going to be 3 millimeters. You need to write this down. It needs to be 3 millimeters from the edge. That's our stitch line, and this is how I do that consistently, which is really useful because you want consistency in leatherwork. That's all that does. It's just a fancy line maker. You could even use a ruler, mark 3 mil at one end, 3 mil at the other end, join the marks together and pull your rule down. We'll do the exact same thing. This is just easy. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to prick mark or punch holes. Same thing. Prick marking by definition only goes through the first little bit of leather. You just mark the pricking marks, the pricking holes. That's a bit more advanced, but for beginning, you need a stitching chisel, is I believe what they're called, and this is what they look like. This one is a 10 tooth. I also have a 5 tooth and a 2 tooth. To start off with, you could probably get by with just a 10 tooth or 8 tooth or something and a 2 tooth. You need a 2 tooth to go round bends, and you need a 5 tooth or 10 tooth to get a consistently straight line down the long edges. You could do it with a 2 tooth, but it'll probably be all wiggly because getting that straight line is much easier and faster. These ones are from Pro Italia Plus in the UK. Blanchard sells them. A million places sell leather pricking irons, leather stitching chisels. This is one place I wouldn't cheap out. The mark that this leaves is the stitching that you'll see. So if you want to have a really nice consistent stitch line, what you put down with this is what you will see in that leather. So I highly recommend spending a little bit more money on your pricking irons. Okay? So now we've prick marked it. we're gonna stitch it. I've got a couple of videos on I've got a video on my channel of how to stitch leather. Please go and watch that. That would be amazing. Don't forget to subscribe for more fantastic videos. And you're gonna need some thread. Now, I'm not doing thread in this video because thread comes in a zillion combinations of material, thickness, and wax. To boil it down, the thread, which can be from like 0.0 millimeters all the way to like 5 millimeters, depending on the thickness of the leather and what you're trying to achieve. It can come in either polyester or a natural fiber. This one's linen. And it can come waxed or unwaxed. Now, it's waxed from factory, but I like to add a little bit of extra wax, and we use beeswax for this. We marked it, we've cut it, glued it, we've punched it, we've stitched it. So before we prick mark, we're going to use a hammer to prick mark. With fancy tools, pricking irons, never ever ever hit a metal pricking iron with a metal hammer. You'll destroy it. You'll mushroom out at the end. Not good, bad, we don't want to do that ever. Don't hit metal tools with metal hammers. That's for builders. We're not builders, we're leather workers. I'm using this, it's a Barry King maul. So there's two types, there's a hammer and a maul. I don't have a hammer, this is a hammer. I don't have a hammer, this is a hammer. I don't have a polyester, I think this is polyester, you can hear it. It's a type of plastic. I don't have a hammer in plastic. Anyway, I don't. So I use a maul. It's a little bit more difficult to use. Get a plastic hammer. You can use a dead blow hammer. You can use whatever you want. Great. And now we've stitched it, we need to tap down the threads. This does two things. It makes them look pretty and flat, but it also closes the holes. Because we haven't drilled through the hole, we haven't removed any material, we need to close them, and it will give more longevity to your piece. And we're going to use a hammer. Now, I polish the edge at the end, and I would recommend that you do too, because any scratches on the face of the hammer will show up on the leather. Don't want scratches on the leather, that's bad. So polish your hammer. I can do a video on it. Let me know in the comment section below if you want to see a video on how to polish your hammer. Would love to do it. Final step, we need to burnish the edge. Now, there's loads of ways we can do this. A more advanced technique is using Tolkanol, which is a burnishing substance, and a piece of cotton canvas. Let me know if you need any cotton canvas, I sell it. We're not using that, we're using some water, because that's all you need. All you're doing is slicking the edge so it closes the fibers, gives it a little bit of extra waterproofness. So we're going to put a little bit of water on it, and we're going to rub it with a burnisher. All this is a rounded tool. You can make one if you wanted, just need a round file of thing, and we're going to rub it really fast, and it creates friction which closes the edge. Fabulous. And then we're going to use our beeswax, the same one we did with the thread, and we're going to rub a little bit on the edge. Not a lot, you don't want piles of it because it will get really sticky. Just a little, 1 or 2 wipes on the edge, and rub it with a t-shirt or canvas or whatever it is that you've got around, and rub it really hard and really fast. It heats it up, seals the edge. Fabulous. The thing I'll mention is a horsehair brush. I think these are horsehair anyway. This one's by a company called Saphir. All this is used for is brushing the debris off it, or dust if it's been sitting on the shelf. And second, if you brush leather with a horsehair brush, it'll get a luster to it. You're polishing the leather. But that's why we need a horsehair brush. If I have forgotten anything, I don't think I have. If I have forgotten anything, please let me know what your favourite leather tool is in the description box below. Like, comment and subscribe. I love making these videos for you guys, but I need your support to keep doing it. So like, comment, subscribe, let me know what your favourite tool is, and I will see you guys in a few days. Have a fantastic weekend.